Arielle, we never talked about how our last episode was our 50th episode.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that kind of crazy?
It is crazy.
Yeah.
We've been doing the podcast for
50 episodes.
a year and a half.
A year and a half. Yeah. Over a year and a half.
Yeah. Wait. Yeah.
Yeah. A year and like 7 months. But we've been working on it for like a year and 9 months.
Yeah. That's
Maybe even a little
wild.
longer. Yeah. Isn't it?
50 episodes.
It's a lot of episodes.
It is. And this year we had a goal to get video going, and that's going.
That's right. We've got our YouTube. If you guys don't know, you can watch us on YouTube.
Watch us on YouTube. We're there.
Yeah, we had video going. We started posting on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and we switched our ads up.
I'm really proud of us for continuing to be as consistent as we've been, especially with all of the changes that we've both gone through since starting the podcast.
Same.
Has it really been just a year and a half?
Yeah, it kind of feels like more, right? You've moved, I've switched jobs, like,
yeah,
crazy town.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's insane. Yeah. Well, because when we started, I don't know that I was even thinking of moving to Kansas City yet. So that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think both of us have goals for the podcast, but our goal as of like the past year since I've moved has basically just been to be consistent about letting out episodes. And then, you know, as we can make space for more, we're going to be doing more. But yeah, I want to say thank you for the people that listen. Yes. I always am so, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm surprised when people are like, oh yeah, I listened to that one. And oh yeah, I listen every week. And I'm like, what?
What? Who are you?
That's so nice.
Yeah, we see the numbers on the back end, but we don't see names. That would be cool. Well, that might be a privacy infringement, but it would be cool to be able to see all of your names listening to the pod.
I would like to know, but just so you all know, we can't know. So you can feel secure in the fact that you're listening.
Oh, yeah. We can't see nothing. Well, we can see what country you're tuning in from.
And we can like kind of see the cities.
Yeah. We can see like a heat map of where people are listening.
But where it's hot, hot, hot.
Like Kansas City right now, because Arielle's AC is broken.
My AC is broken, so it's been a hard day. Yeah. Everything's fine.
But yeah, we can't see who you are, so don't worry about that. But
there are people that you're like, there are people that I don't want to listen.
100%.
Stop. You don't need to know this stuff about me.
There's a good handful of people I could rattle off right now that I don't want to hear our podcast. But so if you're one of those people, stop listening.
Get off.
Yeah, we'll be able to see you on the heat map. So we'll know you're listening. No. No, but it's pretty cool on the heat map. We can see like there's people in China and Singapore and all over Europe. And we've had some people tune in from Africa. And it's very cool to be able to see people from all over the world listening to our little pod. It means a lot.
It does mean a lot. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, I love humanity. I don't know if I love you particularly.
Who's
probably
you?
Do.
Oh, the person.
Yeah, the person whose listener. Ears I'm in.
Hi.
This is getting weird.
Yeah, we're kind of going off on a little tangent.
I have heat stroke. Okay. I have heat stroke. It's 90 degrees. Everything's fine. A big thank you to everyone who listens. It really means a lot to us. And
it does.
We're keeping going with this thing, and
thanks for sticking with us
as we grow. Yeah.
Very true. Yeah.
Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah. So welcome to Wouldn't We Like to Know?
Again. With Arielle.
Again. And Linda. Again.
For the 51st time. Because it's our 51st episode.
That's right. And this is the podcast where we get honest, deep, and curious about life's big conversations. Isn't that right, Arielle?
Yeah, because we don't have to do it alone because all of you are listening. There's people from everywhere.
From everywhere.
From everywhere.
Every corner of the earth.
Outer space. And I wish, can you imagine? I would
An
die if there
astronaut.
was like people listening from space. I would die. There
If
might
you're
be.
if you're on the space station and you're listening to this, blink once. Oh my God. Did
I
you
heard
did
it.
you feel that? Okay.
Yeah, I did. Today on the podcast, we actually kind of talk about the universe, but we're really talking about anxiety, really
Oh.
fun stuff.
Mm,
So, yeah, Linda shares some anxiety that she's had recently, and we kind of
mm,
chat about how she's been dealing with that. And
yeah.
then I kind of bounce off of that and talk about dealing with my own anxiety. And one of those big things that we talked about was like being able to zoom out, whether that's like spirituality or thinking about our place in the universe, which is a thing I do frequently. But
Yeah.
yeah, that. And then we kind of talk about our depression and anxiety
And Arielle,
linked. Did they? Oh, go ahead.
yeah, well, and I was going to say, and Arielle asks the question of, have you had more depression or more anxiety? So that was a very interesting conversation.
Just a lot of both. Just abundance.
That's right.
Abundance mindset.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we get into that. We have a question for you at the end.
we
We
do.
are not doctors. The name of our podcast is Wouldn't We Like to Know? Because guess what? We don't know.
We don't know.
So yeah, I mean, we would love to hear from you,
Hmm.
which leads us to
Oh, well, you can talk to us if you'd like on the internet. We have an email, wouldn't we like to know at gmail.com. So you can go on there and write us a little email, answer a question, damn it. Um, you can also follow us on Instagram at Wouldn't We Like to Know. We're also on TikTok. Still really don't know how to use it, but I do post on there for us. And it's also Wouldn't We Like to Know. So you can follow us there. We'll post videos of us chatting to each other. We also post videos and photos from our lives. So you can see pics from the vacation we just went on, vacations, separate vacations, and lots of other fun things.
you can also I'm warm. Okay, my brain is not working. You can subscribe to the podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts. You can
That's right.
subscribe to us on YouTube, and on any of those things, you can rate and review. You can
Uh-huh.
rate the podcast on Spotify. You can rate and review on Apple Podcasts. It
Mm-hmm.
helps us because it helps us to get seen. It helps us to continue doing what we're doing.
That's right.
It would be super awesome. All right, everyone. Please enjoy this anxious episode.
It's not anxious. Don't worry about that. It's not too heavy. We just chat
Don't worry.
through
Don't
some real
worry.
things. Don't
Everything
worry.
will be
Don't worry. Don't
fine.
worry. I can talk about anxiety. I've been
You want
feeling
to
a
talk about
lot of
anxiety?
anxiety. I don't know if I want to talk about anxiety. Well, maybe we could talk about how I don't want to talk about anxiety.
We could talk about how you don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. We could just talk for an hour about how I don't want to talk about it. We could just talk around it.
Perfect. I have a question.
Yes, you
Have
may ask.
you you may enter. You may enter my brain. Have you kept up with the To Be Magnetic challenge?
I took a break when we went on vacation and I haven't picked it back up. So the answer is no.
I took a
Why do you
break
ask?
too,
Yeah.
uh, and never started it.
And it's been 6 years.
He's been dead for 10 years. Yeah, no, no, I think that I was at the end of week 3, maybe the start of week
Same.
3, or
Okay.
end of week 2, start of week 3. I think I like the idea of working through one block
Uh-huh.
in my head,
Mhm.
but then in practice, I maybe it's a me thing, but I find that if I'm focused on this one thing,
Mhm.
like so many different things come up for me day to day that I'm like,
Yeah.
well, today this doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Did it? What's this going to do for me today?
Yeah.
And maybe that's just my brain like trying to talk me out of working on this one thing. Yeah, I kind of find it hard to do a DI about the same thing every single day.
Mm. For
So,
6 weeks.
yeah, I got
Yeah.
2 weeks into it
Yeah. And you were like,
and
nah.
was like, I have other things going on. Yeah, so I have not been continuing with it. I don't know. Is this interesting? It's not interesting to me because I haven't finished. I haven't continued.
Well, neither have I. I've gotten 1 week further than you have, and that's about it. So, which is my pattern with challenges, is I tend to get like halfway through, and then something happens, and then I fall off, and then I don't come back to it. But I do relate to what you're saying in terms of like it doesn't always apply. Like I've been going through a lot of stuff in the last week and a half that has been causing just like extreme, well, maybe not, maybe just the last week, extreme anxiety, like to a point that I haven't experienced anxiety like that in probably like a year and a half or 2 years. Like
Mm.
just feeling like heavy weight on my chest, like feeling like I can't fully breathe. I'm fine and everything will be fine and it will be fine. It will be fine.
It will
I
be
sound like I'm trying to
fine.
convince myself.
It will be
It will
fine.
be fine. It will be fine. No, it really is. It's something like it's a situational thing that will resolve itself. But but yeah, I've just been feeling a lot of anxiety, and honestly, that's probably like when it would be most helpful to like get really still and meditate and do a lot of the things in TBM that are like the calming and the resetting and all of that. But I have been trying to do it. Like I did the resetting one, the fight and flight, one of the new ones, one of the new DIs, and I just couldn't stay in it. And I was like halfway through, I was like, nope, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. Like I have a really hard time when I'm in like that bad of a place of anxiety to really focus on anything. Like my body's just like, shut, I am done now. And it
Yeah.
kind of, my brain just shuts off.
Is there anything that helps you?
But talking about it, like
Mm.
processing through it, having people validate both my feelings, but also kind of reality checking it for me. There's someone in my life at the moment who's having a health thing, and that's also kind of helping because it's putting things in perspective for me of like, okay, I have my health, like I'm alive,
Mhm.
I have my health. Everything else is bonus or like it's just ancillary. So it's fine. Like at the
Mhm.
end of the day, as long as I'm alive, I will figure it out. I think I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday about it, and she was sharing something that she's going through, and also the aspect of spirituality. Like my therapist is always reminding me of that, but spirituality really helps with anxiety because it just reminds you that there's something greater out there. It's the same idea, I think, of like perspective
Mhm.
with the health thing that's happening right now that's giving me perspective, but like having that sense of spirituality and being like, oh, there's a greater being out there that is looking out for me, that has my back. There, this is all going to work out. Everything in my life has always worked out. Things have been hard. There have been consequences to certain things, but at the end of the day, like things will pass. And I was also having a conversation with a friend the other day, same idea of perspective, but we were talking about like something that happened like 10 years ago. And it was this big deal in their life at the time. And we were trying to figure out what year it happened, and we couldn't figure out what year it even happened in, you
Mm.
know?
Mhm.
And I think that's so helpful to remember that in like 10 years, like this feels like my entire world right now, but in 10 years, like I'm not even gonna remember all the details. I'm not gonna remember
Yeah.
what year this happened in, you know? And I think
Mhm.
that kind of helps me zoom out and get outside of myself because when I get into a real anxiety spiral, especially laying in bed at night with my eyes closed, like my whole world is just like inside my eyelids.
Yeah.
And even the other night, I just had to like be like, okay, I'm taking a break from trying to go to sleep. I'm opening my eyes. I turned on the TV, which I know it's not good sleep hygiene, but like I needed to do it. I watched a little Simone Biles like Olympic highlights.
Oh my god, by the way.
Oh, by the way, oh, yeah, we need to talk about that. And I think that really helped too. Like just like being like, oh, there's more people in the world. Like there's other things
Mhm.
happening. The whole world is not inside my head. So that helps too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
perspective thing,
Yeah.
has always been helpful to me. But it is one of those things that, like, if I'm in the midst of anxiety, it can be hard for me to remember that.
Yeah.
The other night, we listened to Carl Sagan's Little Blue Dot,
Uh-huh.
which is him talking about how, like, the earth is this tiny, tiny blue dot in the middle
Yeah.
of like this endless expanse.
Yeah.
And I was just laying in bed, and I think for some people it might bring anxiety. I don't know. But for me, I'm like,
We're so
who the
little.
fuck cares? Look
Mm.
at all this. Like, why am I scared to do this? Why am I scared to do
Mm.
that? Why do I care about this thing? Yeah, to be able to put things in perspective.
Yeah.
That can be super helpful. And even when we listened to it, I did not have anxiety, but I was like, oh, this is a good thing to remember. Let me just
Yeah.
listen to Carl Sagan.
Okay. I'll write it down.
Pull me out. Pull me out. Yeah, but that can
Yeah.
be so hard. I had a
Yeah.
big anxiety thing around my business stuff. I want
Yeah.
to say maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Again, like, I can't say what day it was. I
Yeah.
can't say when exactly it was, but I was like spiraling down this rabbit hole, and I was crying one day. I was like, had to go to work, and Jeff came home, and I was like, I need to talk about this, but if I talk to you, I'm going to start crying, and I already did my makeup, and I need to go to work in 2 minutes.
Oh, relatable. Can't let the
Just one of
mascara
those.
get wet.
No, I've already done this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, don't make me do this again.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, honestly, I did a DI with that, and then I had therapy,
Mm. Mm.
and I don't know, my therapist's incredible. My therapist is incredible. So
I
she
heart
really
therapists.
I heart therapist. So she really helped me kind of break it down and be like, okay, what's actually happening and what are the things that are within my control?
Mhm.
Because that's really what it comes down to, like, what's within my control. And like,
Yeah.
is this the end of the world? No, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a very bad one like a month and a half, 2 months ago, and I hadn't felt that in a really long time. And I often find that it's a thing that feels new. Like generally, I will get more anxiety with things that feel new to me or feel
Mm.
like ground that I haven't covered yet, or like I haven't thought of every single possible outcome, and that's my
Yeah.
fault, and that's
Yeah.
why I have anxiety now.
Yeah.
Whereas that's just not true. So yeah.
Oh my
Are
god,
you
did
okay?
you hear
What
that?
happened? Was that an eagle flying by?
It's a child
Oh, screaming.
wailing.
Cool. Great.
Hey, hey, kid. I know you're having a hard day, but could you not have a hard day outside my window?
Thank you.
Okay.
The kid's having anxiety.
Maybe
Just
we
started
maybe we can have the
playing.
kid on the pod. Do you want to talk about that?
How are you
Tell us about your
feeling?
experience. Yeah, you were saying like new things kind of give you that because you haven't thought about all the different possibilities. Now you have anxiety. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, I feel like I haven't had serious anxiety in quite a long time. In like a very, very long time.
Yeah.
But that yeah, the one that I had very recently felt so hardcore.
Yeah.
Super, super, super hardcore.
Yeah.
And it was with this, I was just realizing how much I cared about
Mm.
this new business venture that I have, my Airbnb stuff. And like, I care so much about it. And also, I have invested more into that than I have invested into many things, like energetically
Yeah.
and financially. And so it made sense why I was feeling that anxious,
Yeah.
which I guess brought me peace to an extent. Whereas, like, some days, if there's not, honestly, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, some days if there's not a reason that I'm feeling anxious, then that's hard. But also, if there's not a reason that I'm feeling anxious, usually I'll just be like, all right, I can ride it out.
Mhm. Mm.
But yeah, that was
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. I think like with the anxiety too, it helps me to be present with the anxiety because I've gone through periods of anxiety where I haven't been conscious of the anxiety that I'm feeling and present with it and kind of been pushing it down. And then I have a panic attack because my body is feeling all of this stress, but I'm not recognizing that I'm feeling all of this stress. And so then I think I'm having like a medical emergency when actually I'm just having a panic attack and I can't, I'm like, where did it come from? Like, I don't know. Because I've just been functioning at this like super high level of anxiety that I haven't been recognizing. So it's
Mhm.
almost a gift when I'm feeling the anxiety because I'm like, okay, I'm noticing this is happening. And when my heart's beating fast, I'm like, okay, it's just because I'm feeling anxious. And then I can use all those other tools to kind of help myself regulate back down as much as I
Mhm.
can. But yeah, it almost feels like a gift to be like, okay, I'm being present with this. I know this is happening because the opposite of that is it happening and me not being aware that it's happening. And then that kind of snowballs, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's so scary when something's going on in our body and we don't know what it is or like why it's happening
Yeah.
versus like understanding the incremental steps that are leading to that thing. Like
Yeah.
having more of a reason why is helpful.
Yeah. And the thing you were saying too about like figuring out what is in my control and what's not in my control is something that also really helps because just taking my brain tends to just like spiral into all the different things. Like you were saying, like you feel like you haven't thought of all the different things. And so now you have anxiety. Like
Mhm.
I just think of every single outcome that could possibly happen and I think of the worst possible outcomes that could happen. Like I don't think of the positive ones. I only think of the negative ones.
Mhm. Yeah.
And and then I just lay there in bed just like kind of trying to calculate like what am I supposed to do? And then I just get so overwhelmed and figuring out like what is in my control, what's just like the next like tiny little thing that would feel right and have integrity like built in, like what would feel like that's the step that has integrity for me, and just taking that next step, that also
Mhm.
really helps. Like that movement, it doesn't make the anxiety go away, but it helps me know that like I'm not out of control. I have agency, I have power, like I can just take that next right step and
Mhm.
just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And like by doing that and not being frozen, which is kind of my tendency, by taking those steps forward, like I'm actively taking steps to not feel this anxiety anymore because I'm working through it and I'm processing through it and moving my way out of it, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of the time anxiety comes from like that overwhelm. Like
Yeah.
it's a sense of overwhelm, and when we're anxious, we can get overwhelmed even more by being like, here are the 1,001 possibilities of what could happen next and what happens if I take that this step or this step.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you're talking, I'm remembering that when I had my anxiety a couple months ago, that I had this like very clear thought in my head of like, I need to write things down. Like, I need
Mm.
to map this out because right now it's just like swirling around in my brain and it feels like this foggy mess and I can't like lock on to any one thing. And so I'm just like in this liminal space of everything is going to shit. And so I like
Yeah.
sat down and wrote down in a notebook, like, okay, what are the possibilities of what could happen? And also like what are things that I can do? Here are the concrete things that I can do and I have control of. And like if this next thing happens that feels really, really scary and like untethering, what would I be able to do in that situation?
Mhm.
And there is always an answer.
Yeah.
There's always an answer.
Yeah.
And for me, that was, I'm just remembering now that I did that. Like, that was so helpful.
Yeah.
And it didn't completely erase any of the anxiety, obviously, but it like put it down somewhere versus like swimming around in my brain in nothingness. It was like, here is everything on a piece of, not everything, but a lot of things on a piece of paper
Yeah.
and like potential ways that I could respond to those things.
Yeah. And even if the worst thing happens, this is how you will deal with it. Like there's a game plan and you know that at the end of the day you'll be just fine. You'll figure it out. And like we were saying, like at one point in the future you'll be like, I don't even remember when that happened, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It will all work itself out even if the worst thing happens, as long as you're not
Mm-hmm.
dead.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're
and even then
resourceful.
that'll work itself out, you know?
If I'm dead, I'm not going to care. If I'm dead, I'm not going to care.
Yeah. Sometimes situations that you get yourself into have consequences, and sometimes you have to deal with those consequences, and that is hard and unpleasant potentially, but that's also a lesson. Like you'll grow from that, and that's what I'm trying to like grapple with, that if there's a consequence to this thing that I'm feeling anxiety about, then I'll deal with it. You know, then I will face that consequence, and that will be what it will be, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think those times can also build self trust of like, I know that I can work through this.
Yeah.
I know that I can work through this. And I don't know, sometimes I think about it and I'm like, oh, it's nice being an adult. Like
Mm.
I have I have agency. I have tools at my disposal. Like I can deal with this in the way that I want to deal with this and I have resources to help me. And as a little kid, you're not usually making a lot of those decisions, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like as an adult, it's like, okay, I can write this down. I can find a therapist. I can reach out to this person or that person and I can make the decisions. And that's also really scary because
Yeah.
it's on you generally to figure out. But
Yeah.
yeah, there are times where I'm like, being an adult, this is nice. Like I can choose whatever I want to choose. Like I
Yeah.
have the power to do what I want to do.
Yeah. I think that's also part of the reason sometimes why I have anxiety that doesn't feel like it's connected to some sort of situational thing. And that doesn't happen very often anymore. It used to happen a lot more in my early 20s, but I worked through it with my therapist, and it made a lot of sense after we kind of talked through all of these situations, talked through my childhood, because it in my childhood I felt like I had no control over anything. And that was true. Like I didn't really have, well, I don't want to use absolutes. It's not that I didn't have any control over anything, but like a lot of things happened in my childhood that I didn't have control over. You know, there were accidents and there were like physical traumas and being moved around a lot by my parents, and like these things were not things that I had control over, and they some of them were very traumatic experiences. And so like my body kind of feels like it's waiting for the other shoe to drop all the time because I had no control. And so therefore I'm just expecting the next thing, the next bad thing to happen to me because my body doesn't feel safe.
Mm.
And the truth is, as an adult, like you're saying, I do have choice and I do have agency. And I make certain decisions sometimes that I end up not feeling the best about. And that's okay. And that's a lesson then. And I can also take steps to make different decisions. So I have a lot of control and a lot of agency. I'm not just waiting for the other shoe to drop all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like life is unpredictable, but it's not as unpredictable as my body thinks it is, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I reposted something recently.
It was on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. It was Yasmin Cheyenne, and she posted, "The other shoe will drop, but I'm no longer spending my time waiting for it. Choose joy so it can hold you when the tough times arrive."
Ooh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's funny because I remember like having this feeling when I would wake up in the morning that was like, what's the next thing I need to worry about? Like, what's the next thing I need to worry about? And luckily, like, I haven't
Yeah.
really had that in a long time, but I remember feeling that way. And like, I don't know. What if we don't like make time for like the good things that are happening right now that are bringing us joy and giving us all of these good feelings, then like we're just waiting for shit to go wrong.
Yeah.
We're just waiting to feel scared and everything is up in the air. And And I don't want to live that way.
Yeah.
Like, I want to enjoy the good stuff.
Yeah. Like the thing you're anxious about might happen, maybe it won't, but something hard is going to happen in your life. Like life is full of hard shit. It's inevitable. So why are you going to make yourself absolutely miserable living in the anticipation of something bad happening? If you know something hard is going to happen in the future, why are, like just be present, like just exist in the here and now. And if nothing is actually bad right now, then just exist here. Like
Mm-hmm.
why make your entire life hard moments
Yeah.
when life is ups and downs? It's hard moments and joyful moments. Like live in the joy when you are in those hard moments, because that'll sustain you through the hard moments. If it's just like life being a line of hard things, like nobody would be able to survive that. So why make it that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when Jeff and I first got together.
So by the way, so
Wonderful.
much easier said than done what I just
Yeah.
said. Like I'm
Just live
clearly
in the
grappling
present
with
moment.
anxiety. But
Perfect.
like
Easy. Done. Yes.
but it's true. Like I have to remind myself of that, of like the hard thing hasn't happened yet. Well, I'm even
Mm-hmm.
saying yet, like I don't know if it's going to happen. Why am I making myself miserable thinking through all the outcomes that could happen
Mm-hmm.
in this moment where nothing is wrong?
Yeah.
Nothing's wrong.
Well, a big thing that I feel like I learned and kept from my previous therapist in New York is she would always ask me like, what's true right now? Like,
Yeah.
what's true in this moment? What's true right now? And I feel like luckily that will pop into my head. And I feel like that's served me really well for the past however many years, where it's been like, okay, what's true right now?
Yeah.
All right, that scary thing that I think is going to happen, it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
It might, but right now, that's not true. It has not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Same.
much easier said than done.
What were you going to say about you and Jeff?
I was going to say that when Jeff and I first got together, like I was so happy and like love drunk and whatever. But I kept feeling like this is too good to be true. Like something is going to, the other shoe's going to drop. But I kept
Mm.
having this intense anxiety of like, he's going to get hit by a bus. Like
Mm.
he's going to, I don't know, like something terrible is going to happen. And this is like, I only have this for this month or something. Like it felt like there would be a time limit on it.
Mm.
But that was so acute. That feeling of anxiety was so acute. And it came with like really crazy joy. And that was super trippy, super, super trippy. And then I think it was just a matter of like continuing to live. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
actually, this is not being taken away from me. You know,
Mm.
like you know, when around the time that he and I first got together is when I first started doing a lot more self work. And so I
Mm.
really feel like a lot of what helped me with that was like I learning my own self worth and like I deserve this. Like that's a scary thing to say. I deserve this because I
Yeah.
think there was a big part of me that thought that it was a trick and like I didn't deserve it,
Mm.
and so that's why it would be taken away from me.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could have like said it that way back then, but like since then, I've realized that's really what was going on. Like, who am I to deserve this amount of happiness? Nobody
Mm.
deserves this amount of happiness. Maybe other people do, not me,
Yeah.
deserve that amount of happiness. And so it was like something is going to take it away.
Mm.
Yeah. So that was really interesting, an interesting
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. What helped you work through that? Just realizing that you had those feelings of like, I don't deserve this, or
Yeah, it was that. I was in therapy at that time, and the therapist was super helpful. And I do think that it was just trusting, not even trusting. It was like I was forced to trust because every day I would wake up and I was still there and he was still there.
Yeah.
So it's like at some point it just becomes history. Like
Mm.
we've both woken up and we're both still here. So I guess that means something.
Mm.
And that, yeah, that was something.
Yeah.
I'm so hot. The air conditioning is
Oh,
broken in my apartment.
I'm so
Sorry.
sorry.
My top lip is sweating.
Oh
Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa.
no. Oh
It's
no.
fine.
You look
Everything's fine.
very dewy, if that like in a good way,
I'm
not
sure
in a
I
sweaty
do.
way. Yeah.
I'm sure I do.
You're glowing.
I am dewy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that does help. It's like just the history of knowing, and I think that's helpful as you get older, the history of knowing I've gotten through things before, or I have woken up every day and this person is still here. So I have context that I can trust. I have history that I can trust. And like I have that with like health anxiety sometimes if I start to feel anxious about my anxiety. Oh my
Anxious about
god,
my
that's so
anxiety.
meta. I'm like, okay, well I know that I have history where I've gone through periods of intense anxiety and it has gone away. And it's a wave, it's a flow. It's, it might come back and it's okay because I know I will work through it again and it'll go away again eventually. Just having that history that you can trust. And it builds
Mm-hmm.
that self-trust of like, I know how to work through this. So I'll get through it.
Yeah.
But that's so helpful.
Do you feel like you have had more anxiety or more depression? Or both? Just
Which one
both.
of the fun vials would you like to take? What a great question. Which one have I had more of? I had more depression when I was younger. I didn't become aware that I had anxiety until I was probably 22, 23. So it was there, but I wasn't aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I also wasn't aware that I was depressed. I don't know. That's a really good question. Maybe more extended periods of intense anxiety
Mm,
than depression. And for me, depression feels easier to get myself out of.
mm,
Like I
mhm,
have a list of things that I know I can do, even when I'm feeling a little low, that I've built a lot of history with just doing those things. And I know that that helps me. Mm. So probably more anxiety. Yeah.
mhm.
What about you?
Yeah. Uh, Probably more depression.
Yeah.
Probably more depression, but I feel a similar way about the anxiety where it feels like anxiety feels harder to get out of for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And I guess it makes sense because anxiety, I was going to say it's all consuming, but depression can be all consuming too.
Yeah.
I think that I just have more trust that my body will figure depression out.
Yeah.
Whereas
Same.
with anxiety, I don't know. I have trust because I've gotten out of it, but
Yeah.
it's it can feel more confusing. I think maybe there's like more
Yeah.
going on and so it feels super overwhelming whereas depression is like uh, it's like I'm so depressed I'm not even worried about it. like like okay,
Yeah, just go back to bed.
I'll just be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's an
Mm.
interesting thing to think about. Yeah, I think with anxiety it does feel like this swirling, like I'm trying to outrun something and my brain can't latch on to anything. And
Yeah, it's like frantic.
yeah,
Yeah. And
really
depression
fun,
feels
really good.
lethargic to me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, lethargic. I also think that this might be weird to say, but we've talked about this before with seasonal depression, where there's a
Mm.
part of me that's like, okay, I'm going to take a little brain break, which
Mm.
but I don't know. Maybe that's weird. Of course, there are times where I'm depressed and I'm like, this is terrible. And I feel like I'm disconnected from my life. But I think that there's like a small aspect of like a little bit of melancholy especially around like winter, that it feels like this is just my body telling me to take a little break.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case. I don't want to like mischaracterize depression at all, but with anxiety, it never ever feels at all good.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's a strange thing to say, but yeah.
Well, it's your experience of
Yeah.
that feeling of lowness and less energy. And yeah, I
Mhm.
think for me, like with depression, it can spiral into hopelessness pretty quickly if I don't catch it in time. But things like having a support system really help me, and talking to people and having people check in on me. And so it doesn't for me necessarily feel like a brain break. It feels like a very deep swallowing in of sadness almost, and just like apathy.
Mm. Mhm.
Like I feel like I'm being swallowed by something, versus with anxiety I feel like I'm in a tornado.
Mhm.
And so they both feel challenging. But I think you're right, like with or I feel the same way with anxiety. I just feel like I'm just constantly like my brain doesn't know how to break. Like I can't it's hard to make the tornado stop spinning, but like I know how to climb out of the swallowing. That makes sense. Like I yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
feels like there's a little bit more mm, a little bit more control with depression. I don't know. I
Yeah.
The only way I can describe it is like I have more trust that I can get out of depression than I do with anxiety.
Since we have that same experience, I wonder if there's science behind that, or if that's just our experience and we're confirming each other's experience. So it feels like the right answer.
Yeah.
It's not.
I don't
Yeah, I
know.
don't know.
And I've never had severe enough depression to like I've never been on antidepressants. I've never
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
depressive periods longer than maybe a couple of weeks.
Mm.
And so like I understand that my experience of depression is probably very different than a lot of other people, especially people with very severe depression. So I just want to say that real
Yeah.
quick that for
Yeah.
a lot of people I know that it's not a brain break and I just want to say that.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I wonder.
Yeah.
I
We're
don't
not
know.
medical experts, by the way.
I'm
Just in
not a
case you
medical
couldn't
expert
tell.
in case you didn't know. I'm
Yeah.
a love doctor.
The name of this podcast is Wouldn't We Like to Know?
Yeah, cuz
And
we
wouldn't
don't.
we? Wouldn't we like to know?
I mean, I want to know other people's experiences between
Yeah.
depression and anxiety. And I want to,
Yeah.
it does feel like it feels like generally when people have anxiety, they also have depression here and there. So I wonder what
Mm.
that's like. But I also know people that like literally don't have any anxiety. They don't get anxious. And that's so,
Really?
I'm really jealous of that. But I also,
Huh.
like the people that I'm thinking of in my mind, they are very, very present, super,
Mm.
super present. And so I think that it's
Mm.
just like this, like, it's going to work out. Like, why am I getting worked up? I don't even know what's going to happen yet.
They're present, but they're optimistic, like super optimistic too. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I would wonder for other people, like, what, uh, if they have both, and if they do have both, which one is more prevalent?
Hmm.
And then if, like, are there people that don't get depressed and are there people that don't get anxiety? And if there are, is that real? Is that
Yeah, that was
real?
kind of my thought. I was like, how can that possibly be real? I'm like, let me talk to this person who's never had anxiety before. Cause like, I think they have. They just don't realize it. Like, they
I
must.
think
Like, that's
more,
wild.
I think it's more like they can get worried, but then very quickly they realize like there's no point to worrying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Ooh,
that's a
yeah.
gene that I wish that I had.
Mm. Yeah. I wonder, is it a gene or is it
I
a
don't know what it
muscle?
is. Maybe it's a muscle. I also think that part of it is like the way that you were brought up. Like if you were brought up with
Totally.
somebody that was like meditates 4 times a day and you know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Super calm, super grounded, nothing. They trust everything will work out. I think that is like the spirituality aspect though. Like that really helps. Like, it doesn't have to be a religion per se, but just like having this trust that there's a greater being that's working everything out for you and is orchestrating everything and can, like, you don't have to be in control. Like, your anxiety, you don't have to figure everything out because you can give some of that away to whatever the greater being is, you know?
Mm-hmm. Or of thinking about the universe, which like nothing we do really
Yeah.
makes any like nothing really matters. Nothing really matters.
Nothing really matters.
Yeah. Well, if anybody listening wants to share any of their stuff around, I can't spike. If anybody listening wants to share their experience with anxiety or depression or like those questions we just posed, we would
Yeah.
love to hear. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to
Very
be in
curious.
detail, but yeah, I'd be curious to know. Are you one of those people that just never has anxiety? Because if you are, tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Tell
Tell us
us
your
what to do.
secret. Yeah.
We love it.
Tell us
All
which
right.
gene we need.
Yeah, we'll get it implanted in our brains, in our
Perfect.
bodies.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, we will talk to you in 2 weeks.
Yeah. See you in 2 weeks.